But before we kind of get to the main parts of the presentation, I do want to share a few things with you as we start, all right? The first idea is who we are as a business school and what we stand for. We think that there are three main big differentiators that set us apart from the other business schools around the world. We really believe in the idea of experience-driven learning, the idea that you like to learn by doing. You know, there's a lot of group work here. There's a lot of hands-on. There's a lot of roll your sleeves up and get down and finish these projects. So, you know, as I said, if you're someone that likes to learn by doing, we're going to be a great place for you. The other idea that we really stand for here at Ross is the idea of a close-knit community. As you guys all know, there's lots of options for business schools, big cities, medium-sized cities, small towns, college towns. And I think for us being in Ann Arbor drives a certain sense of purpose for the community here. People choose to move here for the business school experience. They all live together, they eat together, they study together, they spend time together, and it's, you know, being in proximity to each other in a great college town like Ann Arbor and part of the greater University of Michigan really lends itself to a great tight-knit community, which we have here. The other idea that we say a lot and that we believe in is the idea of go blue, go anywhere. We don't mean that just geographically, but we also mean it in terms of career. You know, we really talk a lot about people coming here to make shifts in their career or to accelerate their career, or just find a place that you want to be in and potentially find that dream job. And we really do believe that everything we have to offer in terms of our foundation and support is going to get you there. So before I get into the consulting heavy part of our project today, I do know that many of you have been on our other webinars and have been meeting us out on the road. I do want to share where we're at in admissions today, right now, as we speak. All right, so round one applications were just due October 2nd. I can tell you that my team and I were in the back office looking at spreadsheets and at test scores and at resumes already. We're really excited about this year's pool. I will say, with that in mind, we're planning on releasing a wave, our wave of interview invites around October 30th. So give us a few weeks to do our initial run, initial review, and then we'll make interview invitations. Another thing to be aware of is we are currently all over the road right now. I know Taya Sapp, one of our other associate directors, just got back from Asia, but the rest of the team and I are going to be on the road in Houston, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and LA in the coming weeks and within this next month. So we'd love to see you all on the road, so make sure you come by an event if you can. Otherwise, if you want to come and visit us, we will be there for you too. And the last thing that's made the rounds with the news is we're happy to announce another $50 million gift from our namesake, Mr. Stephen Ross. And just to share with you a couple details on that, of the $50 million, $16 million will be going towards what we call the Student Success Initiative, which will go towards the Career Development Office and other support areas where we really want to be able to make sure our students are getting where they want to go. 16 million of it will go to our faculty support fund. That goes everything from hiring junior faculty to making sure our faculty are fully supported in their research and in their teaching. We are also going to put $8 million in the Ross Investment Fund, a student-led fund, which is going to be focusing on a variety of things, but particularly venture capital, private equity, and of course, real estate, which is what Mr. Ross is involved in. And then the rest of the remaining money, about 10 million, will go towards finishing the building here at Ross. All right, so with that said, let's talk about what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about consulting. In particular, we'll talk about some of the outcomes, how the class ended up. Importantly, we also want to talk about our Career Development Office and its large umbrella of support that's available to the students that are here for both years during MBA. We'll talk about academics and math. We'll have our students be able to really reflect on each of these areas. And then at the end, we'll talk about student resources, the different consulting clubs we have, and finally, we'll take questions from the students out there. So as questions do come up, feel free to start typing them in. I will look for them here in the dashboard, and we'll try to address them as we go. But if there's other things that come up, let us know and we'll answer them. And if there are specific questions that are super specific, we will get to those at a later time. All right, so the first thing I want to get to would be our overall idea of what we're doing here at Ross. Just to give you an example of how well our students and our Career Development Office have done is that this is the 2016 data first. I do want to make that clear. This is from the class of 2016 graduates. Our Our data people are still working on the 2017 graduates. That should just be maybe perhaps a few more weeks. We'll be excited to publish the employment report online in not too soon. But for today's purposes, we're going to talk about 2016 class. So with that said, we're really, really proud of these numbers. 98% of our students had job offers within 3 months of graduation. And that's important because we know that the career is the biggest driver of coming back to MBA. So that's a pretty big deal for us. The other thing that I think we all should know here is 88% of our students from that class changed industry or function. I think that speaks to the level of support and recruiting that's here, but also to the foundation that you're able to lay academically. And, it really is kind of a full circle service where, people are going to be in your shoes. You're looking at making some sort of career shift. So really keep that in mind. So that's the big picture of our overall career network. I do want to get into some consulting specific outcomes here. Consulting is the biggest part of our career outcomes. 32%. I think the number was actually maybe 32.2. So I don't want to leave one or two students off the list there, but almost a third of our students are graduating from Ross and going into consulting. So that's why we're actually leading off. This is our first real career focused webinar of the year in terms of our admissions standpoint. And we also want to make it very clear that all the top firms are here. The top firms are here for 10 weeks, and all the logos that you see there are hiring 10 plus people each. So know that if you come here, you're definitely going to get a stake in the consulting aspect. We can't promise you a job, but we promise you a shot at it. You'll be supported. You'll have access to all the recruiting, all the great companies. Everything's going to be there for you. So if you do make the opportunity to bet on yourself by coming here at Ross, it'll be there for you. All right. So with that said, I want to take advantage of one of our best resources, and that would be our students. And I want to let our students introduce themselves. They'll tell you a little bit about who they are and where they're from. So please.
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Sonia Joseph Griffin. I'm a second year MBA student here at Ross, and really excited to talk a little bit about my past experiences. I'm originally from Florida. I did my undergrad at the University of Florida as a chemical engineer, and spent some time in downstream oil and gas, so in the chemicals industry with Dow, or I guess now Dow DuPont after the merger. Had a really good time there. I was my main job role was really, running manufacturing facilities, designing manufacturing facilities. This is a highly technical role, but I saw myself as a general manager going forward. And I thought about what would be the best way to make that pivot to get those base foundational business skills, and then also exposure to figuring out what the right industries are for me, which is why I decided that I wanted to come to Ross. Largely driven by the math experience. I'm a big believer in that because I think I believe that you learn the best when you actually do. And so that really stuck out to me with Ross. And so I've had a great time here, doing a math project in Germany with Adient, working on pricing strategy, and then spending the last summer with the Boston Consulting Group based in Atlanta. I wanted to go back south, and the network here made that happen, which was great. So I did a couple of really cool projects in completely different industries. I think my first project was in the travel and tourism industry. So think of like your big hotel chains and working on pure growth strategy for them. And then my second project was in the telecommunications industry. So think any of your cable companies. And over there working on an internal transformation strategy. So that was a fantastic experience. And so now I'm back here trying to give back as much as I can. One as a peer coach, which we'll talk about soon, but also by leading the consulting club.
And have you decided what you're going to be doing when you're done? You excited?
I have until November 30th to sign the offer, so I will wait until November 30th
All
to
right.
sign the offer.
Awesome. Great. Okay.
Spectacular. Hi, my name is Ashley Freeman, and I'm so excited for you to learn from two of my favorite people here. But about me, my hometown is Los Angeles, California, where I studied at Pepperdine University in broadcast journalism and advertising. From there, I started my own business called My Everyzine, which is a teen magazine dedicated to the academic and social aspects of high school. Doing that, I managed a parallel career mostly in tech and entertainment, where I spent time in international marketing at Sony and then as a project manager at Google. Working in that parallel career, I really wanted to be able to have the impact that I had with my own business, but also the scale that I was able to enjoy at Sony and Google. So I knew that business school was going to be the best way for me to start aligning my goals. And for me, innovation is something that really energizes me and captivates me. And University of Michigan was really best positioned to really feed my curiosity and help equip me with the resources to be able to embark on this path of alignment. I had a hypothesis that consulting was going to be that source of alignment, and after spending my summer at Accenture Strategy, it's all the way confirmed. I had an amazing time working on a multi-billion-dollar consumer packaged goods company, and it's been a pretty epic experience. So now that I'm back at Ross, I am just trying to soak up the last of our time here, mostly working as a peer coach, as Sonia mentioned, and as co-president of Michigan Businesswomen, one of our largest clubs on campus.
Cool. And funny story about me and Ashley is that we were actually having drinks with a very pro-Michigan, pro-Accenture recruiter just a few weeks ago. So with that said, have you decided yet, or are you still going to think about it a little bit?
I just love having the opportunity. Yeah. And I'm kind of like on Sonia's boat. I've got until December.
That's the way to do it. Absolutely. All right, cool. Great.
Hi, all. I'm Claire Fletcher, rounding out our super panelists today. Really glad that you all made time to jump on the phone. I'm sure some of you are multitasking at work and listening in, so thanks for doing that. So for some background, I'm from outside of Chicago originally, and I went to Grinnell College in Iowa, small liberal arts school, with a history and French major. So in basic contrast, Sonia had very low kind of quantitative exposure prior to coming to Ross. I worked in AmeriCorps with a nonprofit college access program, and also then sold professional services for a new model legal services firm called Axiom in Chicago as well. So after time both in the nonprofit and for-profit space, recognized an opportunity to build on that quantitative skill set that I saw was maybe critical to being a client partner and advancing my career. And so really excited to be now a third generation Wolverine at Michigan. And yeah, my dad and grandma also came here.
So that's precious.
Super fun to go from. I think I figured out there's like 80 of my undergrads could fit in the big house. So it's quite the departure from my undergrad time, but I've had a fantastic experience here, and it's opened more doors than I could ever have imagined. I interned in Chicago with BCG, and also unlike these guys, I signed my offer on the spot. So
all right, good job.
Yes.
All right.
So just to add quick details, my project to give you a flavor of the kind of work that these firms do. I was on an apparel client, helping with inventory strategy, and did log pretty heavy consultant miles flying out to Portland, Oregon for 10 weeks. So back on campus now, I'm helping to run the Give a Day Fund, which helps is a student fund that gives grants to students doing social impact internships, which are relatively low paid or often unpaid. So getting back to my nonprofit roots on that front.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we're going to pivot real quickly to the, not so quickly. We're going to talk about the Career Development Office, and it's a really large umbrella of operations in terms of how we get our students our jobs here. The first point I do want to make is about access. I've been traveling on the road all over the world and all over the country, and one of the things people always ask is, hey, does being in Ann Arbor impact access at all? Does it do anything in terms of recruiters? And it doesn't. We get the same equal, if not better, opportunities and access than other places. And I'll say that with a little bit of a saying I like to use here. I used to be a corporate recruiter. I used to work in HR at Target before I came here to the admissions office at Michigan. And the way I look at recruiting is what I would say is game recognized game, right? So it doesn't matter where you go to business school, really. It matters that there's a reputation and there's a history and a track record of success of graduates. And that's what we have here at Michigan. So I can tell you that if you come to Michigan and you come to Ross, you're going to see firms. They're going to be here for 10 weeks each year doing presentations, informationals, lunch and learns, coffee chats. They're going to have office hours. You'll have access. So if there's one thing that you don't need to worry about, it's the access to top recruiting firms, right? So that's one thing that's going to be there for you. The other things that are part of Career Development Office are going to be really, really professional preparation and then some specialized coaching, which we're going to get to right now. The first part about this preparation aspect is that you're going to get a dedicated staff coach. We assign staff coaches at Michigan here based on your career area of interest. Luckily for us, we've got someone who is immensely qualified to talk about consulting. His name is Randy Albert. He is our Associate Director of Career Coaching. He's both been a former associate partner at Accenture and a former senior manager at Deloitte. So he's been in the industry, he's done it all. And now we're lucky to have him here as part of career development under Ross. And so he'll be the main contact when it comes to the staff coach. On top of that, you'll have one-on-one summer meetings. You'll have access to the coaches for all these appointments that you need to get into. The other thing that I think is really interesting is something we call career action days that really starts super, super early. And I'll actually kick it off to one of our students to talk about career action days. You want to lead us off a little bit?
Sure. So career action days is a very much an immersion into life in recruiting in business school. So the whole idea is that CDO, the Career Development Office, works together to put together a curriculum that helps you do really three things: get your resume right and tight for dropping, helping you own your story, which we call our Odyssey, something that really illustrates where you came from, why you came to Ross, and then why you want to be at the company that you're interviewing for. And then third, to help you get clarity on just what career you're trying to pursue. I think that a lot of students come into a business school thinking that they just have, all the time in the world to understand, what they want to do with their career. But Career Action Days is definitely an opportunity to say, well, no, you have like 3 weeks, but don't worry, because we have everything you need to really help get you to the finish line.
Yeah, I've always found it interesting that, being a former corporate recruiter, we wanted to be on campus right away, right? What that saying is, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So recruiters always want to get you early. So I know it's a little bit of pressure to sound like, hey, Career Action Days is during orientation, but it really is in your best interest, and we really do try to take care of you that way. So, and as you said, wait, how early did recruiting start for you guys?
Late September.
October,
Beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember seeing consulting firms at NBA games, like.
Yeah.
Cool, right away. So the other part of our career development office is under what I like to call specialized coaching here. And one of the biggest deals that we like to think about is the fact that you have 65 peer coaches as part of career development here. That's the largest number of career coaches of any of the schools that I've been able to look and do research on. And as you guys all know, Ross travels with a lot of other schools for some of our events, and then we get to know a lot of our other peer institutions through travel and through conferences. And the support that our peer coaches provide is really unprecedented, because we do have a very, very diverse student body on the incoming way. And so there's a lot of people with great experience to draw you from. And so I actually kind of want to leave this to our students that are actually all peer coaches here to talk a little bit about what a peer coach does and what our consulting fact groups are. Fact groups are our functional accountability career teams, which we'll get to in a second. Thank you. I know, right? Yeah, that's what it stands for. So so let's talk about peer coaches a little bit and what you guys do in your role and how you support our current students.
Definitely. We were all just talking about our roles as peer coaches. Actually, definitely one of the highlights of my time here at Ross. So the whole idea of the peer coach is that the Career Development Office equips us all with the same curriculum and the same tools to really help bring consulting and whichever industry recruiting to scale for students. So, we have, like you mentioned, the 65. That means that there's, over 65 people there to really help you and support you in a lot of different ways, whether it's helping you get one-on-one feedback on your resume, interview feedback, mock casing. That's been very popular for the last couple of weeks. We are definitely your resource to be able to get you ready for the interview day. And then on a more personal side, each of us have what you just heard of, fact groups. And for us, it's a group of 5 or 6 students where you get probably one of the most individualized attention to your needs. So, there's going to be a lot of resources where you're going to get at mass, and then there's a lot of opportunities for you also to have that time for you to ask the questions that are relevant to you. I always think of my job as a peer coach as the one that shows the guiding light at the end of the tunnel, because, you know, when you're an MBA 1, it's a lot going on. It can be overwhelming. And I'm really thankful for my peer coach or my PAC group leader who really helped clear the way for me. So
I just want to add to that. I think, especially as an MBA 1 being, I remember when I was part of my PAC group, having a community of 5 to 6 people that you could share anything with, that you could practice anything with, that you could share your worries, your stresses, and get true, honest feedback is really, really important. Because I think you can really only grow when you have a supportive team that's pushing you and challenging you in the right way. And having an intimate setting like this really allows for that. And I found that to be incredibly valuable.
I think that's also another indicator of just the Ross community, where we're not just like cutting each other down and trying to like, you know, compete. We're really trying to, you know, raise each other up to the way where, like, if you win, I win too. So it's pretty epic.
I think to beat this drum for a third time, something coming out of my summer internship, I talked a lot with my intern classmates from, you know, many other top business schools about the kind of support that they had in recruiting. And like the one thing I really took away was an extra appreciation for the infrastructure of the MBA 2s here, given that like really that's not something that exists to the extent that it seems to here. And so I think like would really just emphasize how this is part of your experience and it brings you along, because it's a lot and there's a lot of stuff going on your first you know 2 academic blocks. So really leaning on your peer coach to kind of move you forward is an incredible resource here.
All right. Speaking of academic blocks, you know, there's a couple areas that will really prepare you for a career in consulting. You know, we just talked about the career development office and all the things on that side of the house. The other really important part is the academic preparation that we've got for you here. So, you know, the first thing to think about would be, you know, we have the really, really strong, challenging core. Then we have a number of different electives you can take, and then we have MAP. I do want to talk through potentially a couple courses that our students have taken, just to give you an example of what's out there. You know, to be quite honest, yes, most of the top schools are going to have the same sort of structure or some sort of classes that teach the foundation. I do think there's a differentiating point that we've got though. In consulting, you know, you really have to be strong across all areas as you come into different varieties of industries and companies in your career. And within our academics, one of the things that we recently just recognized for is U.S. News and World Report every year, they do a ranking of specialty academic areas. And when they do 10 rankings in top 10, and we were ranked top 10 in 9 of the 10 specialty areas. And that puts us as the number 2 school in terms of top rankings, behind only Stanford. And I think that speaks a lot to getting you ready academically and helping you feel prepared to go out there as a consultant, or, you know, as a marketer, brand manager, or as an ops person. It doesn't really matter that way, but you know, I want you guys to know that you guys are going to definitely be prepared on that side. You know, with that in mind, you know, we're going to have our students just talk a little bit or reflect maybe upon a class or so, or maybe the core, and how it helped them as they switch their career journey.
So I think it's funny looking back that now I'm taking this class called Valuation, which, if you think about it very simply, is how do you value companies, how do you value business units? Not only for like a potential acquisition or anything, but also to make sure that when you look at what projects you want to fund, are you looking at that? Are you capturing the risks appropriately? And it ties so well to what I did over the summer, because during my first project where I was working in the travel and tourism industry, my particular area of exploration was a potential inorganic growth opportunity. So I was looking into, should I buy $1 billion? Well, not me, but should my clients buy $1 billion company, right? And to see that parallel is so amazing. And yeah, that was one of my examples.
Yeah, I would pull on one experience that I thought a lot about this summer from the ops core course, where, you know, like many schools, like Ross is a blend of both case and lecture in the classroom. And we did a number of cases in our ops class that were, like, as I said, I came back to build my quant skills, like, were very challenging for me. But there was one in particular that focused on having insufficient data. And how would you make assumptions and, you know, put together a robust enough data set that you could actually do the analysis. And my project this summer was, you know, full of insufficient data sets.
Right.
And so I had that experience of how do you make assumptions, how do you figure out what's missing and navigate that ambiguity that is what consulting is all about. You're never going to have perfect information tucked in the back of your case. And so I really saw that connection more so this summer than I, even could in a moment of class, but found that to be really valuable.
Yeah, for me, I started this summer working on a people strategy project, which is something that I thought I had no experience or value to contribute to it. But as I started to understand what our clients' needs were, I started to realize that there were a lot of lessons learned from my management organizations class and from my time working as a Plus Lab Fellow with the Center of Positive Organizations that I was actually able to bring to our team. And the feedback that I got from my manager at my midpoint review is that I brought net new to the team. And I'm just like, what? Like, what? So I'm definitely thankful for the academic preparation that I got to actually employ during the summer.
All right, great. So the other part of academic preparation, which I think is a pretty big deal, is MAP. In the corporate recruiting game, when it comes to Ross students, MAP is just an incredible example of answering all these behavioral-based interview questions because it just gives you so much to work off of. And I really do think it's the biggest thing we do. The first thing about our multidisciplinary action projects is the experiential learning at Michigan with MAP is required, right? So at other business schools, it's 5 days, it's a week. You pay your own way out there, you shake some hands, you kiss some babies, you sit on some meetings, and it's good to go, right? At Ross, it's different. There are no classes during MAP. MAP is your class for those 7 weeks. It's full time. You're also fully sponsored by the company. Last year we staffed 83 different projects with 74 companies, and they are the ones that pay for your travel. It's not out of pocket to fly internationally. It's not out of pocket to fly across the country. They're going to put you up. They're going to have you part of that company for those 7 weeks. And it's all around the world, right? If you want to go and get some international experience, that's an opportunity for you as well. But that just gives you an idea of some of the logistical things. I do want to talk about the opportunity and value that comes with MAP because it's 7 weeks. You are essentially doing a mini consulting internship before your actual summer internship. The logos I have up on here are just a sampling of companies we've had the last couple of years. I can tell you, we've been doing this for 25 years. We know how we do it. We have a lot of repeat companies. We bring in a couple new companies each year, but it really is a significant portion of your Ross experience. I want to talk about value before I give the students here a little bit of time to reflect on what they got from their MAP. But from a recruiting point of view, all right, first thing is we assign you to a group of 5 or 6. And when you go 5 or 6, we send you out in the world, to this company. One of the big lessons you're going to have to learn how to deal with is you have to learn how to lead without authority. We don't assign a team captain. No one gets to be, the team lead. You have to figure it out together, and you have to figure out together on the fly. You have to learn how to deal with ambiguity because, these aren't practice cases. These are real world examples, real world things you're doing at that company. So, you'll be plenty supported. But the whole idea is that we're sending you off campus, and you have to solve this problem from really scratch. So a couple other things that I think are really, really valuable. One is also dealing with multiple stakeholders, right? So you have your faculty person, you have your team, and then you have your company. And you have to manage expectations from all 3 sides, and you have to be able to deal with any changes they have. While I say it is a well-oiled machine, sometimes companies change their minds, or sometimes companies have different requests that come up midstream, and you have to learn how to deal with that and bring a deliverable at the end. And then obviously the other thing too that kind of goes a little bit unsaid, but I think is important when you get out there in the real world is, you are presenting to a senior level executive at the end. So you're having to prepare presentations, you're working on decks, and you have to work on your public speaking skills. It's a very lost skill nowadays. And, as a former recruiter, something that we really, really value here. So, it's not just all those things. And I do want to make one more plug. Your summer internship after MAP and after your first year has a pretty good amount of play in the offer you get, and if you have to re-recruit or not your second year. And one of the advantages of people that are going on MAP is they just went through 2 months of practice work time. And so when you start your internship, your brain and mind and body are going to be ready to go. You're not going to have just those 2 weeks of lollygagging in class or doing other social activities back at B school, but you're going to be working for really 2 full months before your summer internship, and that makes an impression upon the people that you're going to go work for in your summer internship. That makes an impression upon the recruiters because your mind is in the right mindset. You know, you don't have a whole lot of chances to make a first impression, and that summer internship is really important, and I think this helps me to do it really, really well. So with that said, that's from me preaching. I do want to let the students kind of reflect a little bit back on their MAP experience too.
Yeah, so happy to share a little bit about my MAP experience. You saw in my profile, I was with GE Power and traveled to both New York to the headquarters of GE, but also spent 2.5 weeks in Northern India traveling around with my team. So that was an amazing experience. Had never been there before. But as Sun said, the entire thing is about getting thrown in the deep end and having to figure things out. And so I think the corollary that I saw when I was thinking about prioritizing MAP projects, so you rank 15 and you generally get in the top 5 or so, of course with some exceptions, was, you know, I want to be thrown in the deep end. I want to work for a large public company since I had not had that experience prior to Ross. And just wanted to do something totally out of my comfort zone in full, you know, awareness that the likelihood of my summer consulting internship project would also be something I had no prior experience doing. So luckily for me, I guess, my MAP checked all those boxes. We were working on essentially helping build a go-to-market strategy for a energy product that would serve what, you know, GE calls the base of the pyramid, or emerging economies, and trying to have this not just be a CSR play, but actually a sustainable business model, which is a lot harder than it sounds when the, you know, target market is living on under a low threshold per day. And, you know, ultimately, as Sun said as well, we did present this to senior leadership. In fact, it was the then CEO of GE Power, who is also a Ross alum, which is pretty exciting. And our sponsor as well too was a Ross alum from 2011. I think there was a lot that our team talked about of, you know, seeing both, you know, someone 5-10 years out and what their role is like as a general manager and all of the trade-offs that he had to make in running this project, which is essentially a startup within GE. And then seeing, you know, the long game, right, of someone who had grown up at GE, but also come back to Ross for his MBA and now is running, you know, the largest segment of GE at this time and was in play at the time of our presentation for CEO. So it was a really incredible experience, and I definitely brought, I think, just more confidence going into my summer that I had figured something out that I knew nothing about. And then when I found myself, you know, day one at BCG, like, I don't know anything about inventory management. I had something to lean on, and that did give me, you know, I think a sense of confidence I definitely didn't have before. So it was a really formative opportunity, and one that, you know, I definitely use not only this summer, but I know I will going forward as well.
So I mean, so my MAP experience was working for Adient, which is a spinoff of Johnson Controls, working on pricing strategy in Germany. And, you know, similar to Claire, had a great opportunity to do something that was completely out of my comfort zone in automotive and like the revenue pricing side, not on the manufacturing experience that I traditionally had. And getting a chance to travel to travel to a different country, present to senior executives, all of that was true. But I want to echo a different point too, is when you're working on these projects, you are with your fellow classmates day in, day out. When I was in Germany, like we would wake up together, hang out, like, you know, work at our client site until like 6, come back, have dinner, and then go chill out until midnight, sometimes work, sometimes just chill. And you're with them all the time.
Which like consulting.
Exactly, which is precisely what you do in consulting, because you travel with your team together, you are working with your team together, you're always brainstorming with your team, you're always supporting each other, helping each other. And so that ability to get used to being around people all the time is important, but then also making that a very conducive environment so that we're all kind of pushing each other towards, you know, driving towards that goal in a influence-based environment is really important, because I think even in consulting, you have like, you don't really have that many layers. Consulting is a very flat organization, and you have to be very comfortable escalating your ideas, your opinions, etc. And I think MAP really enables me to do that.
Yeah, and it's like a super safe environment for doing so, right? Your summer internship, as we've hit on, is challenging in so many ways, one of which is that you are, aiming to get an offer at the end, which is its own whole layer of stress that's added to the experience. And so to have MAP where that's not the case, it's this great laboratory to just try things out, make mistakes, learn to work with very different personality types in a more significant way than just being on a group project with them in class. As you all know, like, those can be more transactional. This really is, like, as Sonia said, like, you are with this crew and there's no getting out, right? So you really have to find a way to move the ball forward. But you have some safety in that, which I think is really, really special.
Great. All right. So with that said, that takes care of some of the academic side. Well, I also want to talk about the other wing of what you're doing with the student experience here, right? It's academics, it's recruiting, but there's also the social, people, student aspect of it too. And here, I've listed a few of our clubs and opportunities. Of course, it doesn't include, our big data club or our design plus business or any of our innovation labs that really kind of also touch on the consulting space. But today we actually, since we have the consulting club president here, I would love her to talk a little bit about the consulting club in particular. So.
Yeah, sure. I think the consulting club has been here for a very long time. It's a well-oiled machine and really tries to help students in two big buckets. One, of course, is figuring out if consulting is right for you, but on the other bucket is helping you prepare for this career path and for the recruitment process that you're going to be facing. And to enable that, thinking in terms of frameworks and MECE and everything, this supporting, helping you prepare gets split further into two additional buckets. One being the education piece that we do. So we have people that are dedicated to having a full curriculum that's planned out for the entire semester, which goes hand in hand with what you cover in your fact group in your weekly sessions. So we basically hold weekly education sessions on Sunday for an hour, hour and a half, with the core curriculum, with MBA 2 panelists, with practice sessions, etc., to teach you about the recruiting process. But then on the other side, outside of education, is the actual network and connection piece. So we have a really good team of people that work to make sure that all the firms that come to campus, you have the opportunity to meet with them one-on-one through either coffee chats, through corporate presentations, through the consulting forum, through other panel events, et cetera, that we have to make sure that you're as optimally prepared as possible, not only in terms of knowing the firms, but also knowing how to be successful with recruiting at those firms. And so I think there's a whole list of different activities that we do that's listed, which all falls into these two buckets. I don't know if you guys have anything else to. Yeah.
All right. Great. So with that said, I do want to make one more big plug about your Michigan Ross experience, and that's the network here. One of the interesting facts about the admissions office on our team is everybody on the Ross MBA admissions committee went to Michigan, either undergrad or MBA at Ross and came back, except for me. I'm the only person on the team that wasn't lucky enough to go to Michigan. And so I have a lot of respect for the network from an outside point of view, right? And that's going to speak the same for all of you that are out there. Most of you probably didn't come to Michigan for undergrad. So if you are coming here, I just want to talk about having an ability that the culture here, the network is so strong that to be a Michigan person, don't worry, a Michigan person is not just born, but they can be made as well, all right? So with that said, and I say that because I travel all around the world, and I usually wear a Block M on a hat or on a shirt, and people are always yelling, "Go Blue" at me, right? So one of the big things about here is that your first job out of MBA is usually going to be through career development and the recruiting side. But your second and third and fourth jobs after MBA are going to be through your network and friends, right? And so at Michigan, you have access to over 500,000 people that went to Michigan. I'm not talking about just Ross. I'm talking about overall Michigan. Because this university is one of those places where it doesn't matter if you went to med school here or B school here or undergrad here. They'll support you just because you're a fellow Michigan Wolverine. If you call to pick up the phone, if you want to stalk them on LinkedIn, they'll answer, right? Those are all there for you. So there's a couple things in addition to the network that I want to talk about here on the way out. Would be One, alumni career resources. For the rest of your life, you're going to have access to alumni career coaching, resume review, negotiation help, interview prep. That's available for you. In terms of lifelong learning, we actually pioneered a really big deal last year that got us yelled at from a few other business schools because it impacted their business model. But in terms of lifelong learning, you now have access to tuition-free executive education. As a Ross alum, you can come back and get a full scholarship for the tuition portion of your executive education. So as you guys grow to be leaders out there and you want to brush up on how to lead an organization, or you do need that negotiation class, or you just want to learn how to brush up on some skills and anything else, come back. It's tuition free. You're saving lots of money. So again, we take it very seriously when we talk about the network and lifelong support. So with that said, I do want to end that portion of our webinar talk today. We're probably going to do maybe 5 or 6 questions while the panelists are here providing good insight. We've got a number of questions already in. And if you've got a few more, let me know and I can type them up. So first one that we've got on here today is, do you guys know, going into MAP, did you guys specifically know that you were going to go into consulting? So did that impact your MAP at all and how you selected it?
So we ranked MAP projects in December, which would be like nearing the end of the consulting recruiting process, but pre-knowing what our internships were. So there is kind of like an interplay, as I talked about in my MAP selection, that I thought I likely would be in this scenario. I had my fingers pretty tightly crossed at that moment in time. But I think that you can think about your MAP selection as, I mean, whether you go into consulting or regardless of your career experience in the summer, you can over-engineer it as much as you want, or you can be more open to just traveling and being more agnostic to what the project is. So you kind of have opportunities to the best you can tailor it to what your summer will look like.
All right, we got a question a little bit specific to Sonia, but the question was, can you talk a little bit about going from Dow to consulting and what that was like for your journey?
Yeah. When I was at Dow, that is working for a big company doing highly technical work in my little facility in Houston, Texas. And so it was definitely a big change, one, to work for a big private company, but also to get challenged the way that I was, because I think during my summer, BCG did a good job of making sure that all of the interns, I interned in Atlanta, all of the interns in the Atlanta office tried something that was out of their wheelhouse. So I have a quant background, so my projects were not quant heavy because they wanted to test how I would do with pure strategy work. I know other people that came from, say, nonprofit experiences that instead did pricing strategy, so more quant heavy work. And that being said, even though I truly did a complete pivot, not only in terms of the function that I was working on over the summer, but also the industry that I was working on over the summer, I had so much support, not only from like Ross giving me all of the basic knowledge about just what is EBITDA really, or what is contribution margin, to how to read financial statements, to all of the other things. What is top line revenue? All of these things that as an engineer I just had no idea about, while also getting a lot of support at BCG because they recognize that you don't know all the answers. And I think all of the consulting firms do. They recognize that you don't know all the answers. What they're looking for is, can you problem solve and think? And do you know what questions to ask so that once you get that information, you can internalize it and produce excellent results, right? And I think you have such a good supportive network from both.
The other question that I want to take right now, which is interesting because so one of the questions we had was some internship logistics, because at the end when you're taking your offer, you kind of know where you're going and what you're doing. Can you guys talk a little bit about how your internship offer went for consulting? Like, did you get to pick an area? Did you get to pick a city? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, so for Accenture, what they do is they pool all of their interns in either the New York or Chicago office. And what they do is you just have first dibs on the office that you're interested in if you get the offer. So it doesn't matter if you intern in New York. If you want to go to San Francisco, you can do so. Interns get first dibs on full-time placement.
Okay, gotcha. And then did any of you guys get, request a certain area of the practice or a certain subject?
I think all of the firms are slightly different when it comes to this. So, right, if you look at that list of 7 or 8 firms on one of the earlier slides, like, you know, when you look at like a Deloitte, there's opportunities to focus on tech consulting or human capital consulting. You know, PwC is similar. Whereas like, you know, Bain and Company or BCG, you're probably doing like just generalists. And as Sonia said, they might, you know, to the extent kind of want to push you out of your comfort zone, that might be more what the summer staffing model looks like. But you have to remember too, on the logistics front, like, you know, it's a consulting model, right? Projects come and go, and so staffing is very much a utilization game. And so there's some times that you're going to be doing something because it's available and it might not be your favorite thing, but that's also something that you need to learn too, right? Like, this is a two-way street when it comes to your internships, that, you know, they are, you know, they're getting to assess you as much as you're assessing if it's the right fit for you long term.
Great. We got a question now that I don't want to play with the crowd too much, but I think it's worth emphasizing and talking about. So a question we have was, you know, the question was framed, it's fascinating that recruiters are open to hiring Ross MBAs, even if they have limited or no experience in consulting industry. How do we really make that happen? Look, it's just a tremendous combination of everything we do, right? I mentioned earlier career development and its support and training. The academics are all there too. But a lot of times, look, it's that we have an established track record of sending our students to the top recruiting companies, right? Like, we do that through the rigorous core, we do that through our alumni. Like, it's been proven over time, right? And I think the other thing too is the Ross students, they kind of self-select here, right? So people that come here tend to be collaborative, they tend to be resilient, they tend to deal well with ambiguity. They have the traits that recruiting companies want on the way in, and then all we do is train them and develop and support them ever bit more. And I think that's kind of what I see from a recruiter point of view. Do you guys have anything to add as students to that? I mean, yeah.
What I will say is that, you know, we always say it's great to be a Michigan Wolverine, but it's also great to work with a Michigan Wolverine. And I was able to work with some alum with my project, and just experiencing how we are in terms of developing each other and supporting each other and holding each other accountable is just really unique. So I think everyone's just noticing how awesome that is.
All right. We have a student life question. So student asked, hey, I understand consulting can be a pretty rigorous recruiting adventure. How did it affect what you guys did in terms of other student clubs and activities? Like, were you guys able to do any entrepreneurial things or social impact things? Like, what do you guys do in your student life and not deal with FOMO, right?
Well,
Good question.
MBA life is just a constant game of trade-offs. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're recruiting or if you are just kind of living your life and going to class. There's always going to be something that you either can or can't do. So it's all about priorities. I think that at the end of the day, I didn't miss out on much. I was a writer for Follies during that time, which was a really crazy time. I was on 4 different boards, which I don't recommend, but it was awesome. So, you know, there are ebbs and flows. There are times when you need strength. There's times when you need flexibility. And the great thing is that you have a support system that allows you both when you're trying to achieve your goals.
I will say, so, I mean, really quickly, just adding to that. So all 3 of us are actually married. And
yeah, I think that too.
So all 3 of us are married. And so, you know, when you talk about making sure that we make time not only for all of the clubs and everything that we do, we also had to be very proactive to make sure that we made time for significant others.
Yeah.
And I think like the very fact that we were able to successfully navigate all of that while still getting consulting internships is testament to the fact that you have a really good support structure to make that happen.
Yeah. I think it's a great place to end, guys. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, we talk a lot about MBA, it's just opportunity, but it's opportunity and experience, right? 2 full years of your life, there's a lot of opportunity cost. And so I think our student panelists did a great job today of explaining the whole big picture here at Ross. So with that said, I can't thank you all enough for joining me today. If there are further questions, just shoot us an email, we'll get to them. And there are a few very specific questions here that are particular to your cases. I will go through online and answer them with you off the webinar. All right, so that said, thank you very much. I wish you guys all luck, and we will be in touch very soon.
All right, bye.
All right, bye-bye.